Remember Baker was a Green Mountain boy in colonial-era America, a cousin of Ethan and Ira Allen, and the town of Arlington's first town clerk. He built and ran a grist mill on the spot where the current Old Mill Road recording studio currently sits. He was one of the settlers who became involved in the bitter land disputes between those who claimed property in what is now Vermont, growing out of the Hampshire grants, which were often in conflict with rival claims from those issued by New York state officials. And 250 years ago, on March 21st, 1772, and as a result of his role in the Green Mountain Boys and the confrontations over property grants, he was kidnapped by a posse from New York from his home and severely injured. But he was rescued by fellow Green Mountain Boys and brought back home to Arlington. As a series of events that took place in the years leading up to the Revolutionary War and the founding of Vermont reached their 250th anniversary, events such as the kidnapping of Remember Baker, the assault on Fort Ticonderoga, and the Battle of Bennington will be observed. On Monday, March 21st, that kidnapping was observed with a ceremony at the East Arlington Federated Church, right around the corner from the site where Baker lived. Bill Budd of the Martha Canfield Library provided the historical background for the audience.
Locally, the conflict over land ownership came to a head on March 21st, 1772, when New York Justice of the Peace John Monroe planned to capture Remember Baker in Arlington. Monroe, who owned land under New York patents in western Shaftesbury and the neighboring New York, had decided to make an example of Baker. It's likely he selected Baker in part because there were fewer Green Mountain Boys in Arlington compared to Bennington, and he expected little or no opposition here. The Monroe posse surrounded Baker's home in the pre-dawn hours of March 21st. As Baker slept, the posse broke in through the door with axes and swords drawn. Described by Ethan Allen, they threatened and attacked Baker and his wife and children. Allen gets very descriptive. With weapons of death and spread destruction, cutting with sword and bruising with firearms and clubs. It's remarkable that Baker survived the attack and the winter journey is an amazing event. But it's probably because of his strength, his health, his stamina, his experience as a woodsman that he lived to return to his family. Monroe's capture of Remember Baker was likely meant to intimidate the New Hampshire grant settlers. Instead, it had the opposite effect. The long-term.
Several legislators, Senators Dick Sears and Brian Campion, along with state representatives Seth Bongartz and Kathleen James, along with Arlington Select Board Chairman Dan Harvey, also spoke.
As citizens in a democracy, we have many rights and many responsibilities. One of our greatest responsibilities is to engage in our democracy, and that's what we're doing today. History is a rich fabric that connects our past and our present. By Remember Baker today, we acknowledge that fact, and we acknowledge what it means to work together as citizens to preserve our history, to participate in our communities, and to be part of the democracy that was born here centuries ago. Thank you.
It is very important that we remember, no pun intended, the history of the area and the history of our country. Remember Baker, even just to pass that on to the next generation is so very, very important. I came to Arlington in the early 80s. Unbeknownst to me, I had ancestors that were in the Green Mountain Boys and most likely knew Remember Baker. So this is kind of an honor in a different way for me, but definitely I appreciate the chance to represent the Select Board and the community and take it very seriously.
Remember Baker went on to serve in the Colonial Army and took part in the successful attack on Fort Ticonderoga in 1775. Later that year, however, Baker was killed while on a scouting mission in Canada. His original mill was replaced by the structure that's there now along the banks of the Peters Brook. Jonas Spivak is one of the members of the state's 250th Commission and one of the organizers of the event that honored Remember Baker.
Really, this idea started back in early 2017, and I have to say I was inspired by conversations with Bob Hoare, who's an avid local historian, and who got me excited about local history, in particular the Battle of Bennington. One of the things I learned when I researched the history about the Battle of Bennington was this incredible history of how the community was remembering this story. The fact that we were celebrating the Battle of Bennington continuously since it happened in 1778, the first commemoration. So we're merely continuing that very long history of honoring these celebrations, starting back in 2017, because in my mind, 10 years sound like the right amount of time to plan for 2027. And part of that is remembering and honoring these little stories of local history that lead up to the 250th.
Bennington County was a busy place in the 1770s, and its Revolutionary War history will get a closer look during the series of events that are being planned. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.